Hey everyone, it's me, Scott from Heroic Series Gaming, coming with another video today. It's another video. Today I'm a bit tired, but I wanted to throw the surprise second video in. Sometimes I get to make these second book videos, but only because, I kind of felt bad mostly about 30 Days of Night and like the bad review I was going to give it, so I was like, well, maybe I'll come up with another one. And I actually have read several books. I wanted to talk about, vampires again, but, I've talked about it once before, John Stakely's Vampires. But also, it's not really a vampire book, it's a hunter book. So I will talk about that next month, which is actually what I was going to do. I was going to talk about 13 Bullets, and I think I mentioned that in my 30 Days of Night video, but I changed my mind because 13 Bullets is, again, a hunter story and not a vampire story. It's a story about somebody who hunts vampires. So I was like, man, I keep doing that where I keep confusing what books are what. And so now I'm talking about a book that is also about vampire hunters, but trick, this is the other way around. It's a vampire hunter who becomes a vampire. Yeah, so today I'm going to tell you about Impact Winter, an Audible original story written by Travis Beacham. You may know Travis Beacham from such things as Carnival Row and Pacific Rim. Those are the things that he's most well known for. He does things. He writes stuff, and that stuff is good. He also wrote, I guess he was also the one behind the Carnival Row cipher system kind of thing that they did that I don't think ever actually really went anywhere because it was kind of a loosey-goosey game. It wasn't like a full game. It was kind of like a module potentially. But anyway, that's not the point. Travis Beacham, he wrote Pacific Rim and Carnival Row and some other things, and he is the one who wrote this, Impact Winter, which turned into a full audio drama which had voice actors and sound effects and that whole business. So, pretty darn good production quality on that. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but no, there's a couple of things about it that I'll talk about, and then there's some couple of things that I want to preface with, because if you will go Google Impact Winter, you have to type in Impact Winter Audible, because Impact Winter comes up as a couple of different books, but the one thing it comes up with most of all is the Namco game Impact Winter, which, okay, fine, name is the same, except that the setting of the Impact Winter story matches the setting of the video game, and part of me thinks that Travis Beacham kind of borrowed it, but I don't know. I'm not able to play the Namco game because it's no longer available on Steam. It got pulled about the same time that Audible released this. So part of me thinks that in the background, Audible also knows that there was some kind of semi-copyright infringement, and Namco doesn't care enough to fight it. So they're just kind of like, whatever. It was sort of an indie game with their Namco label on it, so not a big deal. But the game Impact Winter is a survival game, and you basically go places and try to get some tasks done and try to fight back the winter that was caused by a meteorite smashing in the earth, and you're this plucky group of survivors trying to survive in that wintry darkness. And dark and isolation and winter are all part of it. Well, in Impact Winter, it's kind of the same, except with the added thing of vampires. That's the added thing. So with the cloud coverage from this meteorite that crashed into the planet and threw all this dust and dirt up and ash into the sky and created cloud coverage that has lasted for 7 years, apparently, by the start of the story, vampires have come out. They apparently have always been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, just been hiding in the background in the dark, in the world of darkness. And this has allowed them to just come out, very 30 Days of Night style, and they're ruling the world. There's 3 kinds of vampires in the story. We find out that there are blighters. Those are your basic feral vampires that just sort of run around and kill stuff, also known as the Impassionata, I think is what they called them. And then you have the vampires that are I forget what they're called, but they're essentially vampires who are sentient enough not to just be feral, but they can't do much aside from pretend to be humans, and then they trick humans into getting close, taking them in. They're usually like kids or women, and then they get taken into a community, and then they eat everybody. That's what they do. They kill everyone and eat them all. And that's the other kind. And then the third and very rare, very unseen kind is the Overlord version, or also known as the anointed ones by the vampires themselves. They are essentially the vampires that can shape change and have the ability to mind control people and all kinds of typical vampire stuff. Not everyone is one of these. In fact, there hasn't been a new anointed one overseer vampire, overlord vampire in like 300 years, I think is what they say in the novel, and then suddenly there is one. And of course, it's our protagonist, who is one of the survivors of this in England, who is surviving all of this with her little sister and a bunch of people that she knows, one of which he has a thing for her, but she doesn't necessarily have a thing for him, then later realizes she's always had a thing for him. When she slips into her memory land, which I will probably talk about when I talk about my 5th edition video when that comes out. But there's a whole thing about that slipping into memories and stuff, and this story does that a bit. So I feel like Travis Beacham, on top of having played a video game by the same name, also seems to have been familiar with Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition. Yes. So there's that. But overall, it's actually a pretty good story. It's quite short. It's only about 8 hours, if I remember correctly. But it's well done. And it's interesting enough. And the main character goes from being like the badass, plucky survivor vampire hunter to becoming a vampire and then using that power for good. Like resisting her urges to eat everybody. Mostly. She doesn't every time. So I'm not going to ruin it for you, but there's some slips. And then, and then using that to help her people and turning it around. And it sort of definitely feels like it's closed. It's a closed loop. Like there's not going to be a sequel, but they absolutely left it open for a sequel. Like the story ends in a way that could follow other characters. Not that she's gone. She's still around and she's doing fine, but her story is essentially over. And they're ready to move on to other people's stories. Well, they do leave it open for her too, but she kind of doesn't want to follow that line too much. So maybe there'll be a story about her, but probably more likely to be some other people that are going to be in the story. So I will give it 2 thumbs up for quality and well-made production. And also just hint, there's a lot of seems to be role-playing background. But to be fair, Travis Beacham admits to his background in role-playing when Carnival Row came out and he was in the forefront. He should have been more in the forefront because he was the writer of Pacific Rim. But anyway, when he was more in the forefront for Carnival Row, and people really liked this world-building thing, and I guess it hit at the right time because D&D had become popular in the whole business, and this was fairies in the real world. It hit at the right time. People were asking, well, it was an alternate world, but anyway, people were asked him stuff, and he created a cipher system version of the Carnival Row world. And so he was hey, I play role-playing games. Here's my cipher system version of Carnival Row. So so I know that he plays he plays role-playing games, so I can absolutely assume that he borrowed these major aspects from Vampire the Masquerade. I mean, who wouldn't? It is the biggest vampire RPG that exists out there. Okay, so that's it from me. I give it 2 thumbs up. Go watch it, or go listen to it if you have Audible. I think it was free, if I remember correctly. It was a free audio drama, because you know how Audible does that. If you're an Audible subscriber, there are free things that you get. You could listen to all the podcasts now that Audible has for free if you have Audible, which tracks, it's just sort of part of your thing. It's like Amazon's just thing. They give free movies on Prime to people who are members. It's the same business here. Audible now has a bunch of Audible things that you can listen to that are Audible originals and whatnot for free. And this one was free. And so go listen to it if you have Audible. If you don't have Audible, I don't know, feel bad about yourself. Just kidding. All right, guys, have fun with everything that you do, and hopefully you have happy life stuff to tell me about later. So I will get this end scene going, and have a good night.